Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Stand by, having a technical issue. Sorry for the delay. Today's update absolutely wrecked the Mapmaker Monday build. Like, absolutely destroyed it. So I'm loading into a prior build. But at least still have something. Hey, Elena, how you doing? I recognize you. Stand by. And we're back. Sorry about that. Door was pushed open. My cat must have pushed. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for being patient with me as I was getting everything working. Ran into a technical issue as I went live. Basically, a new build got pushed out for Fun with Objects this morning, and I was planning to build in Fun with Objects on the stream. And here now I am able to do that, but I had to load into an older build. So when I came in today, all of the terrain adjustments were gone. It was... Here, hold on. Okay, look at this right here. This is how the center, like, roundabout looked. Right? This is how it's supposed to look. Oh, nice, Elijah. Welcome, welcome. How you doing? Appreciate you dropping in. If you have any questions, concerns, feedback, suggestions, let me know. These streams are AMA format, so you're welcome to ask away. Did I turn it off and on again, Matt? Yeah, I switched into another build and it got it working. Anyway, excuse me. I feel like I might sneeze. Yep, I did. Oh, thank you. So, for those just tuning in, my name is Mac. I'm the community manager for Dungeon Alchemist. Dungeon Alchemist is what you see in front of you. It's a map making tool that is available on Steam. It allows you to build maps in a snap, essentially primarily based in a fantasy aesthetic, though it can excel in like a steampunk or early Western or even like a Victorian era setting if your tabletop game takes you there. Today's stream is a focus on building a map live. It's called Mapmaker Monday. This map is quite extensive. It is a rather large build, and we've been working on it for some time. It started over in this corner here as this little entryway, right? And has slowly expanded into a massive cemetery complex. Various graves of different styles. Here's a little fenced off area, what I would consider like royal graves. We have a nice little cathedral over here, and I built a multi-story tower by hand. This was prior to the multi-level update that I started this map. It's quite old now. So multi-level had to be done, by hand by stacking objects meticulously, which in just a few days, that'll be a thing of the past. So I really love building by hand in Dungeon Alchemist. And what I love to do on these streams is teach people all the cool things you can do and how to use the tools available effectively. We also answer questions during the stream in AMA format, which means if you have any questions whatsoever, you can ask me anything related to Dungeon Alchemist, of course, and I will do my best to answer your questions and address your concerns. Oh, Elena, sorry. I did not see that question before. Hold on, Atlam, I'm not getting YouTube chat. The game yesterday was good. Sorry, I am just so distracted right now between DA not running fully this morning in the right build, and then also, like, I'm kind of... it's been crunch time lately, so... Like, D&D was my only reprieve this week. Basically, it was like my only time off. I've been working constantly as we get closer to the update because there's lots and lots of testing. I communicate with lots of different people, about lots of different things and parts moving and simultaneously falling into place. We had the reveal streams. We had, I'm building a trailer that, I'm working on for the release. I've been releasing teasers, so just tons of stuff going on. But it was nice to have a break and play yesterday. The group had a lot of fun. We moved from Malaja Rock onto new lands. We kind of always felt out of place there. And to be honest, we were fugitives on the run, so probably best that we get out of there. No, by the way, we were framed. I'm going to point that out. I know people always say that, but we were definitely framed. And the person who framed us, we got vengeance on them and found out they just did it out of convenience. But right now our kind of reputation is tainted there. So between that and like everything's massive and giant size in Malaja Rock, we decided we wanted to move somewhere else. Oh, Elijah. We're actually like a good, chaotic, good party for the most part. Or mostly neutral or good party. Hey, thanks, Miss Rattata. I appreciate that. It is a nice map. So the stream today, we're going to be focusing on expanding these, different graves, which I've been getting very creative and coming up with lots of unique graves with the very limited assortment we had prior to this update, which is launching in 3 days for everyone else. But now I'm going to be able to lay graves using this update, which is going to save me like a tremendous amount of time. I'm going to show you all some stuff, and I hope you find it interesting. Go to the graveyard stuff. Sorry, I'm trying to remember where they laid all this stuff out. So there's now like tons and tons of new grave stuff. That like headstone markers, which there was a severe like limited supply of them. You can now, they're variants, which means you can actually cycle through like each headstone style, and then the front of it will change. if you press tab. So you can have tons of different denominations, if you will, which in, say, a fantasy setting, that's great because it could be really any deity you want it to be. Welcome back, Caillou. But there's like tons of new headstones, and they all do this. So there's like something like 700 permutations available with just the headstones alone that you can cycle through. It is weird that it cycles through all of them. Doesn't keep its shape. Huh. That is so diverse. It is amazing, huh, Miss Rattata? But prior to this, we only had a handful of grave markers, very limited assortment, you know? Hey, thank you for the likes, TikTok. Much appreciated. The new assets are usable on legacy maps. In fact, we're on a legacy map right now. Really quickly, let me turn on the mouse highlighter. If you look over here in the top right corner, this little icon here, this lock, multi-level is not supported on legacy maps. You'll see that, and that's indicative that we're on a legacy map right away. But this map is quite old, and you can definitely use new assets in legacy maps. I don't have a date for the second part of the update, Caillou, at the moment, but I do know that... Looking for it. I do know that essentially Fun with Objects actually is going to be like this update and then a quick hotfix kind of patch within a week or two to fix a few things that might crop up after it launches that we may not have noticed. And then there'll be Fun with Objects Part 2, hopefully before the end of the year, at least is the kind of objective, but that's subject to change. Just noticing like some of my chat windows weren't working and I wanted to refresh them. Let's there's all these new mausoleum little things, right? Definitely gonna use those, and you can like cut out a section in the center, remove the top. I mean, Rodrigo, if you play in person with like a TV, one thing you can always do is cover part of the screen with like construction paper or like a black sheet or like, you know, clouds made out of cotton, like the kind of stuff that you would stuff a pillow with or something. I've seen DMs actually cut out roofing in construction paper and put it on top of buildings. But that being said, our next update will solve a lot of that because roofing and multi-level will be in it. So a lot of things will be covered naturally, and you'll have to like get into a place before they can see it. But Fog of War and stuff like that is more a virtual tabletop feature, which at this point we have no plans to put any effort into until we leave early access. So once we leave early access, we'll probably consider doing like a virtual tabletop type features to supplement those things. At least things like Fog of War and you know, just limited stuff like that. Oh, David, that's cool. If you use a table PDF and use layers to do Fog of War. Another thing, like there's like Foundry, for instance, actually has a module called shared, I think it's called shared screen. And that's what you would use if all of your players are playing in one space instead of at different places online. So they all have shared vision on the same screen, but they share the same Fog of War. So you just kind of move them as a group, or if one goes off, they get a little bit extended vision on the side. Cali Psych, we have, I guess, if you consider Fun with Objects 1 and 2 as 2 updates. There's 1, 2... Water Worlds, High Seas, Tricks and Traps, and Instant Dungeon. So what, 5 or 6, depending on how you look at it? If you still consider Fun with Objects, even though it's been split in half, as 2 updates, which I'm going to actually put some context on that, okay? I've made a lot of trailers for our team, right, over the last 3 years for all the updates in the past. And typically they run about 60 seconds to a minute and 20 seconds because the features we put into an update tend to fit in that kind of area of time, based on just my production experience at least. And this update, I'm struggling to fit all the features in just the first half of the update inside a minute 40. So I'm already 20 seconds over budget on the trailer, minimum. Well, actually quite a bit, actually. I'm like 30 seconds over. And I still haven't covered everything. It is quite a lot of features in this update. And then the second half will include just as many, if not, more. Fun with Objects, part 1 will launch with multi-level, roofing, level switching, underground building, modular objects, tons of stuff. In fact, if you haven't seen any of the little teasers I've been putting out, we've been putting them out constantly. One moment. I want to find a video sent to me this morning, and I want to make sure something. Stand by. I need to find this grave. Just a grave with the headstone on it. Why am I not seeing that one in there? It's under structures? Okay, that's why I'm not seeing it, maybe. Not in the gravestone area. It's in a totally different area. Let's check this out. I'm like wondering why I couldn't find it. Hey, don't you crash. Why did we add graveyard twice? This is so confusing. No wonder I couldn't find all these. Okay, well, this is going to be fun. So I'm going to set the universal object scaling down because what that does is it turns an object like this into a much smaller one really quickly. Now it's more like fitting to this, or I could just start filling in this area. But I think I'm going to do it at like a 60% scale and then just start dropping in graves. Watch this. This is going to be so cool. Hey, stop snapping in there, buddy. Every one of these has a different headstone automatically. It's so cool. This is such a time saver. You have no idea. And then I could take like this part off and put something on it if I want. Twist it a little bit. Hey, Artful Darkness, how are you doing today? Wow, TikTok chat is coming through my multi-chat feed. That is so cool. Very rarely works that way. So, David, I'm assuming you want to be able to use like the foreground layering that's now offered by Roll20, right? Where it allows you to like have a foreground layer and a background layer, right? So say I'm the background and this is the foreground. And if this is the roof and I was the map, your players would pass under the roof, right? And then it would peel back as they do so. That's something a lot of people want for immersion, right? I understand that entirely. Oh my goodness, 1.1K likes on TikTok. Thank you so much, TikTok. Y'all rock. But the problem is this update won't feature that. It requires some implementation of a few different working parts to make it work correctly. Though this update will include essentially the ability to split up a map into multiple levels. It does it automatically. So if there's a basement, a first floor, second floor, and so on, it'll split the map up into as many parts as possible, which at that point, when you export it, automatically creates multiple maps. It's actually really straightforward. It labels them as different levels. Very, very simple. I'm sure why it's... Oh my gosh, it's trying to do a roof on that. What? Wow, it's actually adding roofing in a legacy map. I am so confused right now. But in the future, essentially what they'll probably end up doing is allowing the roof to be exported with transparency all around it instead of it showing the ground down below. And then what that'll do is when your players pass under the roof, it will peel away as long as it's set as the foreground layer. But trust me, man, this is kind of a new feature for Roll20. Fantasy Grounds, you know, Foundry, they've had that feature going on years now, and it's something that people have wanted for a long time. But I think that we're kind of waiting until we're at least, figured out the multi-level stuff before we start offering that kind of feature. But it will require either PNG or WebP integration, both of which are kind of complicated to get just right. Either way, it's something they're considering. This is funny. It should not be putting roofs here, and look at it's like messing up big time trying to make a roof. You could see this chapel over here without the roof, and then with it, all the geometries are all over the place, and then it tried to add one there. That's hilarious. I mean, you'll be able to build a multi-level castle in the next update without using thick blocks. You could probably just use that for your walls. I'm not even joking when I say castles are entirely possible in the new update. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna load into a new map that will take some time. It's big, like a 6-story castle. Sorry for the frame rate. This makes my computer crawl when I look at this map. The big boy. Hello, Aaron. Yeah, I think this thing's rather impressive. This feed coming through for y'all? Wow, TikTok, thank you so much. Much appreciated for all the likes. Cool. Cool. I got this greenhouse. Oh, yeah. Oh no. Oh no. Well, luckily, you know, it's pretty cathartic and like very helpful, I think, for one's mental well-being to have a nice artistic outlet such as Dungeon Alchemist. Additionally, I definitely don't want him missing work or, you know, those kind of things, putting off his responsibilities. But I do have to add that I appreciate that you got your friend such a thoughtful gift. I think in this day and age, especially, it's always nice to have a way to, you know, unwind, blow off some steam, and have a fun place to like have a creative outlet. Even if your maps never even see the light of day or are never used in a campaign, I personally just love map making. It's fun. You know what I mean? So I'm of the mindset that it is a great resource for art, way to express yourself artistically. And you know, it's I've seen some fantastic art made by our community over the years. You and me? Like a map or something? What did you have in mind? I'm intrigued. Color me intrigued. Though timing is imperative. At the moment, I'm like working like 16-hour days as we get close to the launch, so it might be after I get a moment to decompress after the launch. Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. For you and your buddy. Sorry, though, I misread that. My bad. My bad. So if you want to send a map back and forth, all you do is file, save, and then that DAM file that it gives you when you save. When you hit save, right? You name the file. By the way, if you have autosave turned on, or if you don't, definitely turn it on. You could set up autosave to like a 1 minute to like anywhere between 1 minute and a 60-minute interval. And if you enable it, save it, as long as the map has been saved and named once, it'll automatically save at that interval, protecting your work. That way you don't lose a lot of hard work. Because we've all had our computers crash or maps crash or forget to save, and it's just the worst. Anyway, so with that in mind, if you just send that file to them, like over Discord or Google Drive or whatever, then they can work on it and then send it back to you. You'd have to do it kind of hot potato style, because if you send them the file and then they work on it and you work on yours in the same time, they don't merge together. So you would let them work on it, send it to you a day or two later or an hour or two later. I've seen streamers actually do something like where they play, we call it hot dam, because when you save a map in Dungeon Alchemist, it's saved as a .dam file, Dungeon Alchemist map. That's our proprietary map or file format. Anyway, with that in mind, they'll be on stream and they each start with a map, like 2 or 3 of them, and then they pass it to each other like magical or like, you know, musical chairs or hot potato, and each one works on it for like a half-hour shift, and then they just keep swapping maps with each other and adding their own flair to it. Very fun. Another thing to consider too is the workshop. You can upload your map to the workshop by hitting publish map. So you open the map you want to upload. Make sure the map is as complete as you wanted to make it, because once you've uploaded a map to the workshop, it's a little tricky to update the map once it's there. More often than not, people end up replacing it on accident because they don't really understand how, and it's because Steam is kind of weird in how it works. But you hit publish map, and you essentially can take a screenshot, name the map, set its access to private or friends. So if your friends on Steam, they can see it in your workshop assets and download it that way. Are there any plans to do different art styles? I honestly don't think we're going to change away from our art style. That's kind of our thing, is our realistic 3D art style. That's kind of the artistic choice the devs chose and wanted to go, is they looked at most of the maps options available, and a lot of them were either really cartoony or not realistic looking, and they wanted something that had that more realistic flair in a 3D looking environment that really popped and looked, alive. Now, I understand what you want. You want Dungeon Alchemist tools with different filters or different sprite sets or object sets. I could see us getting into different aesthetics, like maybe cyberpunk or sci-fi, but I don't see us changing the way our art style works per se. That'd be like, asking two major artists to just flip styles. You know what I mean? And I'm not like, I think ultimately you may want to look into other, and I'm not trying to send you away, but there may be a different map maker with a slightly different art style that's more your feel or your vibe, if that's kind of what you're hoping for. Though I do understand the convenience and ease that Dungeon Alchemist offers and keeps adding with the map making utilities, tools, quality of life improvements, Steam Workshop support. It makes it really nice. So I get at the end of the day why you would want maybe a different art style with the same support package. It would be cool if there was cloud. I mean, like, the Steam Workshop is the cloud, technically. It's the cloud. You're saving stuff in the cloud, but it would be cool if there was like auto saves to the cloud. So once you've saved to the workshop once, it just uploads your save like once every 5 minutes or whatever you're working on. And then 2, it would be cool if you could work on a map with someone else, i.e. 2 or more users could log in and work on a map simultaneously. Yeah, that is one thing I was going to suggest, Oscar, is you could always take your exports, right, and then run them through like a photo filter. There's so many websites now that do crazy photo filtering. One of them is like I've seen some that turns images to they look like they're blueprints. So like a user in our community made maps that didn't have objects inside. They were just like blank slates of floors, walls. Exported it, ran it through the blueprint filter, and it looked like a perfect blueprint. It was amazing. Yeah, I agree, Chim. I think that's kind of where the team went. They wanted something that looked and felt real, but also, it looks like you're in a computer game or like a simulator. Feels like Sims meets Baldur's Gate is usually how I feel. By the way, y'all like this asset here, this new asset called the Archimedes Mirror? Yeah, Steam does have play together, but kind of wonky at times. It does work. Like, you can invite a friend on your friend list to jump in and like they remote access in and can do stuff. So you can do that through Steam to a degree. It's just not something we offer support for. It's through Steam instead. Right? I put it up here with the cannons because I thought, yeah, it would be a really neat defense piece, right? I aim my solar death ray at a giant rock. Within moments, it became molten slag. You guys seen those videos on TikTok? I don't know if anyone else has seen it, and I'm just laughing at myself, but there's a guy that has like a Fresnel lens solar ray type thing that super focuses light, and he lives like in the Arizona desert, so it's super bright, and he's able to like melt metal with it. But he kind of sounds like Napoleon Dynamite when he talks, so it's an interesting channel, to say the least. I really wanted some toast, so I put a loaf of bread underneath my solar death ray. Hey, Highland Lass, how are you? Okay, let's talk about D&D, because I haven't had a chance to talk about it. Yesterday was D&D day. I've been so focused on today's stream, and I haven't had a moment to talk about D&D. Who would like to talk about it? Aaron, honestly, I mean, cities and like, I would say a regional scale isn't really something we're meant or focused on. Ideally, it's meant for like encounters, battle maps, cities, towns. I mean, there's definitely cities and town maps on our workshop, so examples do exist. It's possible, and it's getting better all the time, especially where we're in early access. I like to kind of point that out, is that, you know, while we feel very full featured, we still have a lot of room to grow and a lot of work to do to make it actually a finalized product. Until that time, I mean, there's a lot that could be on the table. Things like that could be something the devs want to offer. In the past, they've said that they want Dungeon Alchemist to be the only map maker you ever need. What that means, who knows? You know, I've also heard them say things like it would be cool if we could do World Alchemist, but would that be a separate product, or would it be contained within Dungeon Alchemist? That being said, like, it's very plausible to build massive maps, but it's solely dependent on your hardware. The more powerful machine you have, the bigger a map you can produce with Dungeon Alchemist. There's maps on the workshop that are like 250 by 250 squares, which, I mean, for any reasonable map encounter, that's pretty insane. Pretty big. Aside from this, you know, there is plenty of ways to supplement a city through the Steam Workshop, or our next update will add roofing, which makes it even feel more realistic to generate like a village, town, city, etc. But keep in mind, the more oomph you have under the hood, the bigger and more interactive and detailed map you can make, right? Ultra, if you look at the export menu, when you're in the export menu, right? You just set it to export size, no borders. If it has a normal border, it'll put this big gray area around it, right? You set it to small borders, it'll shrink it. But if you set it to no borders, it gets rid of the border entirely. But keep in mind, if you have buildings or objects or anything right near the edge, they will be cropped off if you export in a 3D perspective. If you just do a flattened top down, you probably won't have much cut off at the edge, just a little bit. But when you do a small border, most objects around the edge are not cut off in the 3D rendering, allowing it to feel, you know, at least more immersive. Hey, Toastic, thank you. What is that? A cat? A hamster? I can't really tell. Either way, thank you so much for that. Much appreciated. We're going to start putting out some graves. I need to get into graves. But I do not understand why graves are split into like 2 sections now. They're under, let's see, utility, graveyard. right? And then we also have structural graveyard. That is frustrating. Let's just say that. And I didn't save earlier, so the 3 graves I placed. And I don't want random rotation with. It's a cat giving a thumbs up. Thank you, Atlam. I wasn't sure what it was. That's cool. Oh, nice, Toastig. How you enjoying DA these days? And did you know we have an update coming out in just a few days? On the 10th, actually. Yeah, this is a lot faster, but I do wish there was more of these like without the stone cover coming out. Seems like that's not the thing it wants to. You want to start a tavern IRL and you're going to build it in Dungeon Alchemist? Dude, that's so wholesome. That's awesome. I would love to see the designs when you like put them out, or if you like, you know, once you build them. I've actually done something similar. So we were planning to do a convention circuit in the US, right? And I put together our booth design using Dungeon Alchemist. The devs laughed pretty hard at me, but I'm like, I don't know like how to do like all that other type, you know, 3D crazy design sculpting in Blender, so I did it the way I know. UFMC Ninja, that's a good question. Not really, but there have been community members who very eagerly like replicate maps from like of real places. Like Highland Lass, she's a very talented map maker in our community. She was here earlier. I don't know if she's here still. Oh, she might still be. But the thing is she'll make maps of like real locations, old castles and historical sites and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. So like Toastic, I know just enough about 3D design to get myself in trouble. Like I love 3D printing and I can make like really primitive objects. But when it comes to stuff like this, I am way over my head. So, you know, I do the community management gig. I manage our streams. I run support for our community. I create our content, but I definitely don't do any of the development short of testing and community feedback and, you know, like, you know what I mean? Aren't y'all seeing how every time it's a different grave? Though I do wish these blank ones were more like mixed in. That being said, I can probably just delete. How's the feed coming through on each platform right now? I'd love to get feedback from everyone on every platform. YouTube, how are we doing today? Is it coming through clear? Good audio, good video? If you're watching on landscape, let me know. If you're watching on portrait, let me know. And TikTok, let's hear how your feed's coming through. Next, let's hear from Facebook and Twitter if we got any viewers there. And next, Steam, if possible. Steam, if you're watching, I'd love to hear your feedback. How's the feed coming through today? And then lastly, if we could get any feedback from Twitch. I feel like no one's watching over there right now. Just kidding. Everyone's watching on Twitch. So much faster now that I have access to all these new graves. Like, seriously? Hey, Eric, by the way, how are you doing, buddy? Last night's session was great. By the way, Elena came in earlier. I think she was asking me about the session, and I was like so distracted because like this morning my build wasn't working, and plus I'm like doing 1,000 things every day. So I felt so bad I didn't really get to talk about the game, but now I can. Dude, allergies? Oof, I'm sorry. So Eric is my DM for the group that I play with. It's my family, my wife and son, and then is half the group. The other half is a few of my friends, all over the U.S. in different locations. And we've been having a blast. We've been playing together like 8 months now. Well, see, these are fancier graves. This is a totally different area, right? The last night we like took on these like dracons things or whatever they're called. Dungeons and Dracons. Yeah, this is going to speed things up tremendously. Over here, I was putting them in like randomly. I'd put like little plots, some of these like dug ones, some stone, you know, whatever. And then I put like a random item as a headstone. I was running out of stuff. I was getting really creative over here in what we call the sardine can. These are like pauper graves. Essentially, they are dug by friends or family or even the person themselves before they pass away. But it's like a very minimalist grave, either a vertical grave or, you know, columbarium or like just a basic grave. Looks great on TikTok. Glad to hear. You did software Q&A for 20 years. Oh, man. Oh, man. Testing. Honestly, testing's quite fun. The last few weeks, we've been doing crazy amounts of testing. Is it weird that it's the back of these right here? I could always like fence it off so it feels more natchy. Then that feels kind of tight. I'm gonna just really just about getting the feel right. I feel like getting the spaces organized and walkways organized, and this is a weird shape, so I got to get all the graves to work. Not to mention, like, what do I do with all these weird like bends? I'm thinking of putting like either like benches or walkways or statues. I was actually going to use this little space for a park, like with benches and flowers and like a gazebo or something. Yeah. So we have this testing list, Toastig, that's like, you know, like if this, then this, and if this, then this, and you kind of follow the like the lines of like testing to do different things. Does this work with this? Tested under these lights and these maps. It's quite extensive for sure. And even then, we still miss things, you know, at the end of the day. We're only human. Maybe a small church. However, I do already have a church over here, Fog. Got this big cathedral here. Actually made this before multi-level was like available, as you can see. Oh. Ruins of an old church? Maybe. Here's the thing. So, it's a well-kept cemetery, right? Like really well kept. And the way I've kind of headcanoned this is these people have like a lot of reverence for their dead. Like graves are not robbed, as far as they know, you know. In fact, any items placed on graves are collected at certain intervals throughout the year by the clergy and then used to upkeep the property and like, you know, that kind of stuff. And also offer a free grave site to everyone. So essentially, the idea was this place has been around like hundreds of thousands of years, and that's why there's so many dead. There's obviously been intervals of turmoil, like war and stuff like that. Uh-oh. Don't crash. So Toasting, in our next update, multi-level building will be available. Until then, it's kind of it's tricky to do, and you got to do it by hand using objects from the structural menu here. There's thousands of objects in this menu, many of which you can stack on top of each other. There's freestanding walls, for instance. These match every wall in the wall menu, but they're now an object which can be rotated, which can be resized, which can be raised up and down, giving you a lot of options when it comes to building upward. That's exactly what I did with this tower here. The bottom floor was done using the room generation tool, but everything above that is objects. The stairs, the platforms. Next level, you're gonna love this. Check this out. So this is such a massive property, right? The caretaker actually lives on site. This is the caretaker's property and cottage. He's got a beautiful little cottage, quaint property here, but he's got a little farm, work site here where he stores extra dirt and stone and potting for plants because he manages all the plants and the gardens and helps dig graves. And this pond over here is just a little fun little koi pond he has. And like I said, little garden plots, little chicken coop there, and raised garden beds, stuff like that. And then if you come over here, he's a green thumb, as you can tell, but this is his private collection of plants, his greenhouse, with all sorts of plants and, you know, flowers and fruits and things from faraway realms and lands. So he's got like some fey mushrooms and flowers, some cacti, some bonsai trees, a dryad, you know, all sorts of different stuff like that. Fruit, which I would assume is probably foreign to him. How did I raise what up and down? The objects? Very easily. Let me show you, actually. It's very cool. So any object that you want to raise up and down, you got to do one thing first, okay? So go to the object menu, and then you see this toggle right here that says collisions. When you disable the collisions, you enable the fun. Collisions, when they're on, objects are kind of rigid. They snap into place more often than not, depending on the object. And then if you get them too close to each other, you get this X-Men logo. Like, no, you can't be an X-Man. So basically, it restricts you, but then it makes objects snap and more uniform when you use collisions. So it's nice to that degree. But when collisions are on, objects can only like go so big, right? Before they hit a wall. They can only go so small before they hit a wall. And then that up-down arrow is missing. When collisions are off, you can take objects, merge them together to make like new, unique objects, right? So maybe you wanted to merge some rocks together to make a new rock outcropping or whatever. Put some fences closer together to make a custom fence. Or maybe you wanted to raise an object up and down to get it up a little bit higher and on top of another object. When you disable collisions, you can raise objects up and down, you can merge them together and scale them much more freely. The only exception to that would be objects that are locked with a little lock symbol. They're usually wall-mounted objects or pits that like go into the ground. They're a fixed size and cannot be resized at this time. So, yeah, no worries, Toastig. That is a neat feature that a lot of people often overlook or aren't aware of because, you know, it doesn't really say all the 3 things it does. I wish it was just like, instead of 1 toggle, it was like in here with 3 toggles, that one's like collisions, scaling, or unlocked scaling, and then the other one would be like raise objects up and down, or like unlock Z axis or something like that. So it's more direct and you know what you're getting, because it is kind of buried there. And I could make video after video and tutorial and share it on the stream over and over again. People still miss it. It's on our wiki, it's everywhere. It's easy to miss because it's not very apparent. I'm hoping that someday we address that. That's just the woes of early access, unfortunately, too. Eric, what are you up to today? Oh, you're gonna lurk? Okay, we'll talk to you later. Now that he's gone, we can talk about the session. So, we ended up leaving where we were at, which was Malaja Rock, an island of giants, and we moved to a new town about a 4-month boat ride away called Grindavik. And our employer in Malaja Rock, our last job for them, we helped them kind of settle a score and become like the main pit boss in all of the town or whatever. And they basically gave us a bastion. They commissioned us a bastion in the new place we moved to. So we moved to Grindavik, got into our bastion, hung out there for a bit, met up with some new contacts, bumped into some old contacts. But on the way there, we learned how to sail ships. And we also took out some sea creatures. Marrow and Drakon is what they were called. So we had a little bit of fun with that, kicked some butt, took some names, if you will. So basically the journey spanned several months, which is the longest time we've actually had in the game. Our characters have maybe spanned 6 to 8 weeks up to this point in time in game, over 8 months of play. And then in one game session, we spanned 4-ish months. So it was a big time jump. David, currently there isn't an option to do that. I don't think there ever will be, though there may be an option to do what's called variant creation, which would allow you to essentially take a bunch of objects and group them together and save them as a grouping, and then maybe share that grouping on the workshop or paste that grouping between the map all over the map or different maps. There's some potential there, but it's something that needs to be worked on extensively before we can really offer it to any degree. So what I think I'm gonna do, hey KO'd, I see you lurking, what you doing? I'm gonna keep adding graves, I guess. Just get it all the way down here. I was thinking of maybe adding a path here, and then a path there, and a path there, so you can get into these graves pretty easily. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't expect it in the update Thursday. But I hope y'all are excited for that. The update's going to be huge, huge. It's going to be great to be able to, do multi-level effectively, roofing effectively, without using any tricks or workarounds. It's going to be a big time saver for our community, and I can't wait to see some of the new maps that come out. It's going to be nuts. I know people are probably going to be making Yawning Portal and Castle Ravenloft and all the hits, You took the day off? So in updates past, I'll usually post as a joke, a doctor's note that says, you've got a case of cartographitis, or you've got a case of the dams or something. It's just like a little joke kind of meme thing that we do every update. You could give it to your employer or whatever. And I don't think it would pass for a doctor's note, so please don't do that. It is definitely a joke. I think I'm going to do this one more grave here, right? And then that'll be a walkway entrance. TikTok, y'all rock. Thank you for all the likes. I really appreciate the love so much. How many graves have I already put in? I am making moves today. Usually I'd put in like 20, 30 graves. I'm like, yeah, that's a good day. Because I'd be making them all by hand, doing this stuff. Adding grave markers by hand. It's like, psh, there's a new stonemason in town. Yeah, Toasted, you'll be able to flip off in lighting inside in the next update from a little toggle right here. Boop. So when you go to like look inside, right? Normally you have these shadows peeking over from the walls, from the outside light. But now you'll be able to turn that off. So now you'll have to make sure your inside area is adequately lit. Already way ahead of you there, Atlam. I'm just kidding, but you can add these things called abstract lights to your maps and essentially add brightness. These lights, you see them now, but you can disable them. Well, they're invisible, but the light they cast remains. See the difference with or without them? You could use this narratively to essentially like highlight a specific object if you wanted to. Say I wanted this podium to look kind of like blue. Little light above it, right? Change this to blue. Maybe the intensity up a little bit. And so it just kind of has like this weird kind of majestic lighting in the corner. So you can add invisible lighting inside as either a spotlight or a kind of lantern, and you can block exterior lighting. Additionally, brand new feature on the table launching is the grid on top of everything. So if you're more used to a traditional tabletop experience where the grid is on top of everything instead of under objects and on top of the floor, y'all will be happy for this update. Okay. No. Normal. They're just normal maps. Regular styles, Jim. And delete it after. Boom. Have like even fence to that. Gotta keep it go. Which this fence is so thin, it's very easy to deviate or two. Do that over, say, the course of 50, 60 feet, it can make a difference. Right there, this one's not lined up. Darn it. Toilets and boilers, boilers and toilets. Plus that one boiling toilet. Firing me if you do. Isn't there like a new season of Futurama launching in a few weeks? I think it might be the last season ever. Who knows? What would you call them, Chim? Maps made before the update, I mean. Or I mean maps made after the update. By the way, I'm shifting the grave by pressing tab. So every time you press tab, it just is a different denomination. There's like 600 plus combinations, I think. It's going and going. I'm very excited for the new season. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any new terrain paints or biomes in this update. This update primarily has a focus on object and building interactivity and improving those mechanics. I'm not aware of any new biomes, unfortunately. There are some new room types being added in the update. You got like this burnt house, which is pretty neat. If you want to like add like a burnt little village or whatever. There's at least 4 or 5 new room types that are being added. Balconies as well. But as far as like terrain paths right now, each terrain set is locked to the biome you're in. So if you're in forest, you have specific terrain paints. If you're in snow, you have different ones. I found the one with the most options is grasslands. Has like 12 different paints, including a sand. So that's great for doing like an island, and then you could just paint on, say, like, like nature objects of all kinds. They'll be able to open legacy maps, right? You won't be able, even you won't be able to generate a legacy map after the update. You'll just be able to open them and then make edits to them. But technically, anyone could go download one from the workshop and then edit that map infinitely as a legacy map. Oh, nice. I see. How did it turn out? They liked it a lot? Is that up on the workshop? Because if it is, I'm gonna wanna see it. You can't tell me about a cool cyberpunk map and not get me curious. I understand if you gotta, you know, just drop that cool info and bounce. Cyberpunkish arcane. Well, when you do upload it, please let me know. I'd love to check it out. Even if it's like weeks from now. I'm glad your players enjoyed it, though. Always good to hear. trying to get this just lined up, but I also want them to feel a little like not perfect. To be honest, it's been interesting. And I mean, Dungeon Alchemist has changed for the better, mainly due to people who have, you know, really pushed the envelope of what is possible with it. So many community members like don't like taking no for an answer and really just kind of trudge their own path, if you will. And it's interesting to see some of their creativity come through in these like really interesting maps. But over time, their creativity has kind of forced like an arms race, if you will, of different creators, you know, making more intense and insane maps, and then the devs reacting with more features because the creator community is doing all this stuff that like they don't want them to do, or like the devs don't intend them to do, is what I mean. So like one thing, like now you can like take an object and scale it infinitely, right? But for the longest time, the only way around this was by like taking an object and putting it on another object. So you'd like grab something like a rug, right? And you put this wall on it. Let's say it was at its max size. And then you would place, oh, I ruined it. But essentially what they would do is they'd take an item like this, put it at its max size, put it on the rug, right? Or a table or anything of that nature. And then they'd resize the rug. This is like the old school way of making an item bigger. And people would do this over and over and over and over and over again. And it was very tedious. Like it was a pain. And I understand why, you know, people wanted things to be easier to use, right? More streamlined and efficient. So all of these tools coming out that speed up like map making, I'm very excited to see how the community embraces them. UV, please don't beg for keys. We don't actually give them out on the stream at this time. And to be honest with you, Dungeon Alchemist is on sale, so you could actually get it at the best possible deal right now. At 20% off, which isn't a bad deal at all. So maybe go check it out. Try the demo for free, and then if it's something you're interested in more, tag it. Atlam, if they keep being spammy, feel free to either time them out, mute them, ban them, whatever. You know, I'm spending all this time lining these up, but you know how many graves I put out today? It's insane. All of those already. So happy right now. I mean, we've always had the grid, so you could use that and stuff, but like eyeballing the resizing was always a pain, right? Like this is slowly deep across this. Why? Oh. Yeah, Jorpy, I know. But the thing is, I'm kind of laying everything out by hand, so it's clearly not going to be straight at times. It's more or less based on the perspective at the angle I'm at currently. Straight, the fence is straight. It's just maybe not straight with the hedge. Seems like it's converging slowly or something. You know, major lag, I'm sorry. We're multi-streaming on multiple platforms, i.e. Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Steam, etc., allowing people to watch on their platform of choice. Unfortunately, different platforms restrict you from sharing chat from other feeds on your stream. It can get you banned or shut down, etc. And because this is a community stream for a product, Dungeon Alchemist, we don't want to risk the channel being shut down. It is weird. It seems like I'm having a convo with myself, but ultimately the convo is all about Dungeon Alchemist for the most part. I am answering questions from everybody on every feed, monitoring multiple chats at the same time. It's quite a feat, actually, but at the same time, I could see it seems like I'm crazy. For fun, Jorpy, I'm just making a massive cemetery with the intention of sharing this map with our community so they can use it for their tabletop campaigns. Let me save. I feel like I haven't in a hot minute. I'm going to show you all kind of the top-down feed. Takes a moment to load this overhead view. But Dungeon Alchemist is a map-making tool designed to allow you to make maps for your tabletop campaigns, primarily in a fantasy setting, so like D&D or Pathfinder. But at the same time, if you do have a game, say, set in like sci-fi, cyberpunk, Fallout, I've seen maps made for those settings in Dungeon Alchemist. Mainly primarily due to the fact that our community can share assets with each other. You can import 3D models and share them on the Steam Workshop so other users can benefit from them. So if you know how to create 3D assets or you have access to a repository of them, you can, share them and use them in your builds to extend your build options. And I hope I didn't crash the map. At least I saved, right? Anyway, point being, it's really just a tool to allow you to build maps for your tabletop gaming, or kind of like Sims, but in a fantasy setting. A bit complicated for you? What are you doing it for? Or the app is too complicated for you to use, is what you're saying. That's what the streams are for. You come in, you can ask me any question related to Dungeon Alchemist. I'll do my best to assist you. Man, I might have just crashed the app. I'll keep clicking wait. We'll see what happens. Oh my goodness. Thank you for the likes, TikTok. Much appreciated. So I'm running in the dev build of Fun with Objects, which is the update launching in a few days. It's like a few day old version of it. So it's like maybe a week old. So it still has a few bugs and issues, but it's good that I'm checking this stuff in like legacy maps, because probably want to know that it's buggy, right? Hey, it survived. Yep, I can definitely see where it's deviating to in the top down. It's crazy how this fence is straight, but it's not straight with the hedge. So that's the problem. I'm going to have to align this. I'm going to have to realign on this end to fix it all the way down. Anyway, this is a massive map if you can kind of see it now. Quite a bit of graveyard. See, Windows thinks it's crashing, but it's just taking a long time to load because it's like a massive map with tons of detail and animation and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You know, that's a good question. I'll bring that up. There probably should be a marker in the workshop indicating it's a legacy map. Here, let me write that down. because like we have UI indicating when you download an object from the workshop, right? So if you've downloaded something from the workshop, it has this little download icon on it. That's a great way at a glance to tell it's from the workshop, right? Otherwise, you can just check the downloaded objects section, which has all the objects you've downloaded. But yet, the more you download, it gets kind of crunchy, runs kind of slow. I have like hundreds of objects in here. So objects from the workshop, little bit of disclaimer, they're not necessarily as great as optimized as the ones in Dungeon Alchemist. So while it's great to have all this unlimited asset options available, there are many of them that are just kind of huge. Like I've seen assets that are like a half a gig on the workshop, and that's massive for DA. Like our average map is only like 5 to 10 megabytes. So keep in mind, if you download a massive asset from the workshop, you kind of have a risk of Dungeon Alchemist running slow. The old assets will still work. I'm playing right now in the new build with old assets in a legacy map to show you the compatibility options. You'll still be able to open old maps. You'll still be able to put new assets in old maps. You'll be able to use old workshop assets in new maps. The only thing you cannot do is add multi-level to old legacy maps. So maps made prior to this update's launch, you cannot add multi-level features to them using the room tool. You'll have to use the old methods of doing it by hand. So there's no way to change that over, unfortunately. Legacy indicator on workshop maps. Got the note. You said something about it, but I've been eyeballing the stream while cooking. At some point, you showed the export menu. It showed a layered split for multi-level with a ceiling on the temple. I think it's a bug, Mondu. It's a bug. It shouldn't be doing that. I was going to report it after the stream. Like, I'm doing testing in legacy maps today while building. It's kind of a twofer, you know? I'm just going to... all of this sucks because I was going so fast, but I also want it to be pretty much fence right. Go actually that first. Everything up to that. Rotate it a little. Right now, the problem is this fence, if you follow it all the way down, deviates from that. I'm just going to rotate it. So, tuck it in. Remember, like a 1/4 inch on this side ends up being an insane amount of difference on the back end, so I got to get it just right. Multi-level is a feature launching in the next update that'll allow you to generate like multi-floor structures with ease. Here, let me show you. That's a good idea. That or put down like an abstract line or something, like a paint line. It would be neat to have like, you know, when you're doing construction, you have a chalk line, you like snap it. Chalk lines for laying your objects would be cool. Or an object that's like the same size running down like a path. Even a lot easier. This map I made for my table. It is a bastion, actually, based on the 2024 rule set, but it's a multi-level bastion, which I feel is the perfect use case for bastions. So if you're playing 2024 rule set, you may want to tune in here because it's pretty neat. essentially, it is a multi-story structure. There's a basement and 2 stories and a roof. You can see the abstract lights floating right now. Let's disable that. So back here, we've got a little garden. Gazebo. Second floor consists of rooms. So this is like all the different player characters' rooms in the group. Here we have a library / study. A workshop here. This is like a smithy, tinkers, glass blowers, jewelers. You get a map per layer. Every layer exports as its own map. So every floor, roof, second floor, first floor, basement, they all export as their own layer. Okay. So if I go to export, this is the reason I loaded this map, is so y'all could see this. Notice how it splits it up into 4 pieces automatically. So depending on your platform, you just set it to your platform of choice. So you said Foundry, set it to Foundry. If you're exporting as an image, set it to an image. If you want a video, set it to a video format. I actually, do an animated and a still version of all the maps I export. So that's probably a use case for the batch exporter, but the traditional exporter, you could see each level: basement, ground level, second floor, and roof. You can actually tell it to export only the ground floor if you wanted, right? You could tell it to export all layers. Tell it to export all layers and the roof. Or you could tell it to export only the current layer you're on. So if you're in the bottom basement, you could say, I only want to export this layer. That way you have more control. You could say, hey, I want the grid. It'll add the grid and show you it in the render view so you know what you're getting. Really nice. Thursday. But the regular exporter's just getting a big improvement, upgrade, right? And then we're also adding the batch exporter, which the batch exporter is essentially the exporter on steroids. It allows you to set up formats of your map styles. So let's say, like me, I usually export at least 4 or 5 variations of every map. I'll usually do one that's like a morning, afternoon, evening, night, and I do winter of all those. So I have a winter morning, so there's 8 already. I do one that's animated and still of each of those. So it's like it adds up really quick, right? So you could set up export formats of all of them and set all the individual format options. So this one's morning with no grid. This one here is no grid, night, right? Essentially set up all these format options and then save them. And then if you hit export all, it'll export all the checked formats one after another, all of the levels for each of them until it's done. So you can set it and forget it. BWK, it is amazing. Hey, thank you for the follow, by the way. Welcome. So it doesn't use a publicly usable AI model. Our AI is trained entirely in-house, and the assets it uses are made entirely in-house by our team of artists. So we feel we've taken a very ethical approach to the development of our room generation and environmental AI. So essentially, all of the data sets, all of the training, all of the assets it uses, all developed in-house. So it's not a public model of any kind. And I wouldn't really compare it to, say, like a generative AI in any sense. It's more like a last gen AI. It's primitive in that regard. It's more like a procedural, if anything. So we, it's a very specific focus AI, which its sole goal is making maps. So when you give an AI a very specific purpose, it can excel at that, right? And I think when it's a master of everything, it becomes it becomes not really good at everything. Like generative AI is good, but it often makes mistakes on simple things like math or how many R's are in strawberry and stuff like that. So I do like that our AI we've got a very like strict focus. Color. Where my map got like worked. Can you manually modify the map afterwards? You can manually modify the map. You can generate the whole map using AI, everything from the environment to the buildings, or you can build the entire map by hand, or you can generate some and build the rest. It's entirely up to you. It's the best of both worlds. It's a fully functional map making tool that gives you access to thousands of objects, hundreds of different tools and abilities. And our next update will allow you to build multi-level structures, above ground, underground, roofing, all sorts of stuff. But like, let's say I wanted to add stuff to this map right now. If I wanted to add a fountain right here, let me go search for a fountain. Find one like this. Snap it into place, shrink it down. Probably not really center there, but you get the idea. In fact, I'll turn on the grid so I can get overhead and center it on. Eyeball. And now I got a little fountain in the front yard. Really simple, easy add. Or if, say, I'm not happy with this, I want to start a new map. You go generate an entire environment in the forest or in the desert or in caves. When you generate a cave, you can generate entire cave systems. Very cool indeed. Yeah, it's a bug you saw, Mondu. It's like part of an object that's in the next level that's leaking through. So part of the dev testing right now is finding buggy objects and getting them fixed. And that's one of them I have reported. It's called an armillary. It's a little small thing that has like a rotating orb in the center, but that orb is visible on all levels for some reason. So here I just load, it's taking a moment. Just generated an entire environment in caves, right? That just took a few moments, a few clicks to set it up. If you're not happy with the way the caves are, or you maybe want some custom like cut out areas, you can grab the cave carving tools and add little pathways or seal areas off if you want. You have full creative control over the environment and how you want it to look. You can add objects to the environment, more torches, less torches. You can generate it without torches, with torches. You can generate all sorts of different environments, underground, above ground, and everything in between. To a degree, BWK, hidden areas are kind of a combination of how you design your map, and then we have some things like secret walls and doors that you can add. It's like a bookcase and stuff. But your maps, when you use Dungeon Alchemist to make maps, if you decide you want to play in them like D&D or Pathfinder, which is usually what people do with them as they play tabletop games, they usually export it to like a virtual tabletop like Roll20 or Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, stuff like that. And those tools offer ways to block sight or have secret doors and like interactive methods. So you make the map as an image, and then you add interactivity through like, kind of secret hidden layering through the virtual tabletop. But anyway, like I've made maps that I have secret areas, and I just say narratively where, like, I know they're there personally because I made the map. Here, let me show you something. Like this map here, this Prospector's Mine, I made this ages ago. we'll load a new map and I'll generate after I load this next map and show this secret, I'll load up a multi-level generation here in a minute so y'all can see. Again. I made this map 2 years ago. Rather extensive. Mine shaft, a dwarven prospector's mine is what I call it. But I have several secret areas. One of them is over here, which after the fight with this, during the fight, it kind of breaks some rocks here. And if they get a high enough passive perception or an investigation or perception check after the fight, they'll detect air or hear air passing through this like area, and they can find a way in potentially. And it's like a secret burial chamber, right? Of a king long gone, like a bygone king. Back here is another chamber, right? These are sealed here in the map, which blocks them off in a virtual tabletop, but I know they're there, so if a player gets a high enough check or was looking for things actively, might find this. You know what I mean? And so I would just thematically move them there. Now I have another one that's hidden, but it's more like dangerous. They have to get across all of this lava pools and then sneak or jump across this area and then find this, you know, burial. Yeah, I put a lot of love into my maps. Like, I'm not joking when I say I probably put like 100 hours into this one. I love putting detail and time into my maps, and this map is actually a remaster of an older map, one of the first maps I ever made before I was even the community manager for Dungeon Alchemist. But I put a lot of passion and detail into my maps. That the tools that we generate, you know, maps with, they're great, but they don't add this level of detail. But I like to show that it's possible. You know what I mean? With enough time, passion, practice, you can make insanely detailed maps, or you can just rely on the you know, the generation tools, and they're great too. They save you a tremendous amount of time. Yeah, the piping here was cool. It's so much easier to do piping now than it used to be. Y'all want to see a cool pipe map? Oh my goodness. Oh, for sure, Sphere. And honestly, I regret putting that much time into this. Hear it from a DM to another DM, one DM to another. I put a ton of time into this, and my players spent like 2 sessions in it. So you could put all the time in the world into your production, right, for your gameplay, and your players may not find the area interesting or may blow right through it. So you do have to find that balance based on how your players act and play, right? But also, you know, how much time you can invest into a map or story arc or area. But that's the benefit too of our community sharing maps with each other. Is like, you know, you have this repository of over 10,000, 11,000 maps, almost 12,000 maps. So if all of us share, say, 2 maps as a community member, and there's over 34,000 people in our Discord, over time, this is going to get huge, and there's going to be so much available to everyone. Whether it's just one map you spend a ton of time on because you just were in the groove and you really wanted to, or dozens of simple maps that you shared, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. What matters is we're building up this resource for our community to share and save time. The more maps saved there over a longer period of time, the more time it saves our community as a whole. Like a hive, you know, sharing resources and abilities. But this map is insane, and it was done using a new tool called the modular object tool. You can like click on pipes, right? Like these, and they have these chain links. And you can go into the object menu, and it'll show this new tab. When you see these chain links, that means this tab is available. And you can add connection pieces to it. So you can either grab one out of this menu, right? And as long as snapping is on, i.e. collisions, it will automatically snap to that piece, right? You have like pipe connections ready to go. Or you can use the quick connections like this and just add pieces on very quickly. Trying to figure out, I don't function. I want this one. But you get the idea. You can extend out piping like crazy. This works for the big pipes, the small pipes. There's a new series of pipes called alchemical pipes that you can make like a centrifuge, like a brewery type thing, boiler room stuff. Crazy. Anyway, I think this map looks crazy good. Excuse me. Though I can say this, you know, Vulgate and Atlam, sometimes having a detailed map can go a long way for a player who may not have a good like mind's eye or a good imagination, so to speak. Like if someone has aphantasia or something, might be a good idea to have more like substance available to that for them to interact with. Now, that being said, you as a DM, you know your group and how your production should work best. Not trying to like insinuate someone's doing something wrong. It's more or less just find that balance in session prep and, you know, storytelling and production across the board. Some, you know, some DMs have more time to invest tons of time into map making. Others really just use Dungeon Alchemist to save them time and whip up a map a week in a few minutes. And that's kind of the point, is it really is kind of designed to do both, whatever you want it to do. Smart, Vulgate. Raise of hands, how many of you have had a map or a session prepped for your game and then your players completely derailed it and did something different? So you had to make a map on the fly or pull a map out of your storage, like a backup? Goodness, this is so cool. Is this chemistry or something? Sardor, this is a map making utility called Dungeon Alchemist, and it allows you to build maps for your tabletop games like D&D, Pathfinder, etc. We're just showcasing some of the neat maps and tools that'll be available in our next update. The alchemy kind of gives off that vibe though, huh? But it's dungeon alchemy. Dungeon alchemist, I should say. As a Factorio player, these elements are deeply appealing. Hey, I'm glad you like them, my friend. Honestly, I mean, a lot of these like metal things and the pipes were around, but they were really hard to connect before. Now they're better. And these new blaster furnaces are definitely a new part of it for sure. Oh my goodness, Mondu. That's what you get for keeping them out of a city forever, right? Or where were you trying to keep them out of forever? Like a big building? You were waiting for multi-level? TikTok, thank you so much for the likes. Much appreciated. Y'all are amazing. Appreciate you so much. This looks so funny. At the base layer, it just looks like a normal DA map, right? But then you start lifting it up, and oh my goodness. Becomes something new entirely. So the reason I asked if y'all have had that instance in your campaign where things were derailed is because I'm going to run a short Dungeon Alchemist themed ad that kind of follows that same vibe. Stand by.
You stand before the long, dark road to the fabled realm of Goyak-Ta, and before...
What do we see?
I don't know, a goblin.
I kill him!
But before she does, I, Gilliam of Firth, demand to know the goblin's name.
Hi, my name is Woblin.
Where do you live there, Woblin?
I don't think that's relevant.
Well, but I, Gilliam of Firth, demand to seek the goblin's abode.
Clever, find family, kill entire bloodline. I like it.
Seriously, we're doing this? Okay, well, won't be needing that anymore, will I?
Ever get caught by your players with your pants down? Dungeon Alchemist lets you create wonderful maps for any encounter in seconds.
Oh, Woblin, that's a very impressive cheese collection you've got there.
Yeah, it is quite impressive, yes. But you know what's more impressive? This map I have
To the fabled realm of Goyak-Ta. Please take it and leave. Close the door behind you.
Mr. Woblin, I cannot help but notice that you have a secret tunnel underneath your cabinet. Care to explain?
Download Dungeon Alchemist, the AI-powered mapmaker, on Steam today.
And we're back. Thank you for watching that short Dungeon Alchemist themed ad. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to actually work with the One for All Deerstalker crew. They are absolutely hilarious and a pleasure to work with. Interesting, Half Ogre. I got to hear more about this. So, tell me one way they derailed it. By the way, Jorpy, I did not notice you subbed earlier. Thank you for that sub if you're still here. My apologies. It was like 15 minutes ago. So, my bad. I need to put notifications on for subs and follows, but the problem is when you do that, this is my experience with it. There's always that one person who abuses it. And they've done things to kind of help with it, but it's easy for someone to abuse it with bots or by like following, unfollowing, and it just goes off and off and off and off. And I have sensory issues when like there's a lot of sound going on. I can't think or like process it all. So if there's music and a bunch of people talking and then a bunch of notifications going off all the same time, I'll be like, I can't focus. So I basically leave those notifications off to A, help my sanity, and B, prevent spam that gets annoying for the viewers. Gotta get those special sewer mushrooms, huh? That's hilarious. Love it. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, it like kind of speaks to Dungeon Alchemist's ability to a degree, like how much it can do for you, that your players are constantly trying to push the envelope, so to speak. This is my room. There's no theme for the next dam challenge. Currently, it's on break. On break until Saturday, until after the launch. The next theme will be fun with objects. Frankly, we pretty much always pick the theme to match the new update's name when it launches. And we took a 2-week break. This last week and a half or so has been a break from the dam challenge. So everyone can kind of rest, recuperate, kind of think of ideas. And then when the new update launches, we'll start the new dam challenge. I'll put the information in the dam challenge channel with the dates, and we'll talk about it on stream and stuff. Kobold wizard cast polymorph, turning all the big monsters into small frogs. Actually, that was my idea. I came up with that first. We were talking about the pipes in stream, and then I was like, the pipes are calling, and I said, oh, damn me, boy, on stream, and then typed it out. Oh, I claim that. That was mine. That was definitely mine. I love this. This little raised area looks so good. All right, let's get back to the cemetery and add a little bit more before we wrap up today, because I barely did anything in it. Very little building happened today. Hopefully get another, like, fix that second row. Hope y'all have an amazing Monday, by the way. Hope your week is rad fantabulistic. Have an amazing week, whether you're working, with family, enjoying your hobbies, traveling, whatever you're doing this week. I hope you have a safe and uneventful week. Never want it to be too eventful, because that's usually when things are bad, right? So please enjoy yourselves. Hope you have a good week. But also, remember, we host several streams throughout the week for your enjoyment, but also for you to be able to tune in when it's most convenient for you to be able to learn. Every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Saturday, 3 streams a week are available. Our next stream Wednesday is called Office Hours, and it's a stream exclusive to our Discord. If you're not a member of our Discord, I highly recommend you check it out. There's over 34,000 members. It's a place where we offer support both from our staff, our moderators, and also our community members. So you can get support, to questions, or major support inquiries are handled there. You can create a thread or a ticket, if you will, and get your questions answered. Great place to hang out and vibe. There's other GMs galore there, and they all like to share ideas with each other. There's sections dedicated to talking about GM prep and planning, so you can run ideas for stat blocks and homebrew encounters, maps even, see what people think. You can share your maps and 3D assets in our Discord so other people are aware of them. Very fun place to hang out. And every Wednesday we offer a stream there called Office Hours. I like to think of it as like if we had a corporate headquarters. Could come in and get a tour, meet the staff, get support, whatever. Unfortunately, we don't have a corporate headquarters, so this is the closest thing, Office Hours. Every Saturday, we do a stream. It's an alternating theme every Saturday. It's called the Dam Stream some Saturdays, and the alternate Saturday called the Dam Challenge. In fact, this upcoming Saturday, we will be discussing more about the Dam Challenge, because it was supposed to be Dam Challenge Day. So we'll probably just hang out, look at the update, discuss maps, and then discuss what the next theme will be, which is fun with objects, and go in depth with that. The alternating Saturday, the damn stream, we usually just showcase maps from the workshop, kind of showcase how they were made potentially, and showcase various assets that were shared on the workshop. So it's essentially a community showcase on that opposite Saturday. Well, every Saturday is a community showcase. One's a map making contest, and the opposite one is just maps on the workshop. But the Dam Challenge, just so everyone is aware, is a bi-weekly ongoing map making contest where we challenge our community to challenge themselves to make a map outside their comfort zone and kind of do it within a time frame. There's a 2-week time limit roughly. And so you're on a time crunch to make a map of any shape or size following a theme. So usually you have to kind of follow a certain idea or aesthetic to build that map. Anyway, if you're interested in participating in the future Dam Challenge, tune in on Saturday so you can check out the stream, and we'll be discussing that in depth. That does look a lot more straight. I'm going to just cram as many graves in as quick as possible. Sorry, what were you wanting to know, Toastig? Can you show how to export multiple themes at once again? So you would go into the batch exporter, right? Which is just below the exporter setting, right? Hey, John, how you doing, buddy? Welcome back. It's him, the man, the myth, the legend, John Doom. So when you load up a map that you want to export multiple variations of, so let's say you wanted to add snow to a map and export a winter version of it, and you wanted a morning, noon, evening, and night version of the snow map, but then you also wanted a regular morning, evening, afternoon, night version of the map, or anything like that, right? Essentially, this allows you to change and set up and save and name export formats. So here I've kind of named it export format Foundry, image 72 DPI, no grid, night. You can name it however you want, but each time I kind of use a similar naming convention so I know what it is just by looking at it. But if you look, it changes all of these settings. So checked night over here. Now this one's no grid morning with snow. Checked there. This one's just morning without snow, no grid. No grid is usually best if you're exporting for a virtual tabletop because the grid tools in the virtual tabletops are far superior, and it usually is hard to match them up when you export with a grid. So use theirs, set them to like 5 foot if that's your rule setting. It usually works far better. Anyway. So you can essentially add format after format after format so you could have multiple export versions of every map. Say you export 4 versions of every map or 20 versions of every map. This will allow you to have them all set up here, and then you just hit export all. It'll export every level for every format you have created in order until it's all done. Pretty sure that's what you were asking about, right? What do you mean, John? You mean it marks the object as something that can block sight? Is that what you're saying? So if you press File and then just go to the export, right below it is Batch Export. So it's just a new section in the File menu. Really, the only objects that'll be sight blocking would be like freestanding walls for the most part, maybe some big rocks. We really won't be adding sight blocking to most objects because when you add sight blocking to everything, it's a fallacy. It's a pit that a lot of DMs fall into. They're like, I want to add light, LOS marking for every single tree, every single rock. But then when you do that, it's unrealistic in how it looks in the game because you really only see on one dimension, one plane, that flat top-down plane. When you start fractionalizing all the view with all these splinters that are like pizza bites, they start overlapping each other and making it impossible to see. I've seen one guy did it to a forest that only had like 40, 50 trees, and his players couldn't see beyond the edge of the path. He's like, why is it like this? I'm like, because you added line of sight markers on every tree, and your players see in multiple dimensions in the real world, or like multiple angles. They could see down and up and this angle, that angle, not just this little cone of vision. You know what I mean? So realistically, the more line of sight markers you start adding, it actually degrades the visibility that they can see. So what I usually recommended is on like big items, i.e. walls, big rocks. You can add them to those, manually, but for the most part, it will not be on most objects in Dungeon Alchemist. We do it for the walls, windows, doors, which saves you a ton of time. If you want it on other objects, still have the option to do it manually, which it's a bummer, adds time, but that is more of a personal preference. You know what I mean? Like when I'm in a game, my DM, I could just say, hey, is this half cover? Is this full cover for my character? They usually can just say. I don't need to be like behind it and not be able to see someone to know that as a player, Yeah, I think it's a feature just on certain things, but it would be like these freestanding walls will definitely have it, right? Some of these like metal, like some of these things that act as walls will likely have it, but for the most part, like trees, nature objects, things like that won't. I think we added it on these because these are used in building, so they wanted to give line of sight options for them. Sorry for that drawn out explanation, my friend. Oh, before my last session, I made sure I learned a spell. So I learned water breathing for our group because it's a really nice spell to have, especially as a ritual, as a wizard, especially if you're on the water a lot or around the water. I knew we'd probably be on a ship or be traveling, so I took that spell as a precaution, and I just told the DM, I said, hey, every day at dawn, I'm going to cast this as a ritual before we get going. It'll cover us for 24 hours. During our combat and like phase, 2 different players, one got dragged off the boat with a harpoon and almost got pulled under, and then another one jumped off the boat to do like an acrobatics attack and land on a dracon or whatever, and he fell and landed in the water. So like they could have potentially drowned, and they were wearing like full bulky armor, right? Like plate armor. So at the end of the day, I'm like really glad we gave them water breathing. Water walk is pretty cool too. No, water walk's a good one, especially with quicksand for sure. I mean, it's kind of like the water walk is the feather fall equivalent of like water, right? Being able to walk over acid and lava and water and quicksand, anything really liquid is nice. See, I don't have Raise Dead yet, but I do have Revivify. So because I'm a dip into Artificer, I have access to some different spells that aren't on necessarily the wizard spell list. Snow, huh? I've never heard that one. I guess I just don't perceive snow as a liquid. I perceive it as more like a very, 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 very brittle solid. Temporary solid, like ice. I guess it's just, I don't know. I guess I see it as a solid, but it is a liquid state. Huh? Technically speaking. My brain doesn't like it, though. Let's see. Is this looking better? Yeah, that looks like 100 times better. I will have to adjust some of these graves as I go down, but for the most part, this is... Hey, Run Amok, how you been, buddy? Yeah. Anything's a liquid if you vibrate it. Or if you apply enough pressure, right? Surviving? Well, I'm glad to hear it, my friend. Hope you had a good 4th of July. In fact, that goes for everyone. I hope you all had a decent holiday weekend for those that live in the U.S. and celebrate Independence Day. But my home, I get like such a crazy view of fireworks, so we just basically stay home and open the windows and get entertained. Oh! I don't know what just happened. It just froze, so freaking out. Hello again, Highland Lass. I love how every grave is different, subtly different. And if I want them to be even more different, I can like delete the stone or twist it just like a littlest bit. Still streaming at the moment, but gonna wrap up very soon, probably in the next couple of minutes. I realized that this was ever so slightly off kilter, so I had to redo this section, which has slowed me down a little bit, but almost done. I want to finish this before I wrap up. This would be a record for graves in the stream, short of when I use the object brush to do it, like to scatter them. Oh yeah, for sure. Flowers, coins. Right now they're really generic, like in gray. We definitely could use some different stone, like a light stone, a dark stone, different things like that. But look at all the headstones. They're all different. That's the important part. Even if it's the same symbol, it's a different headstone. I love it. Be cool if we had like the Gothic stone and some of those other ones, you know? Oh my goodness, that is scary. That's the worst part about 4th of July is you could be doing nothing, like no fire at all, and still your house could catch on fire. It's scary. So many fireworks, and where I live, everybody gets illegal fireworks. They'll drive to the reservation just out of town called Mawapa. There's like a big, huge gas station, truck stop, fireworks stand, convenience store, open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and they sell the craziest fireworks. Everyone will go there, get them, and then take them back to wherever they live. Hey, Elijah, it's nice to meet you, and I'm glad you were here. And hopefully, I appreciate you being here, but I'm excited you're going to tune in the future. Definitely can learn a lot in a short amount of time from these streams. If you think up any questions between now and then, make sure you write them down. That way, you have a list. Or drop in our Discord and spin up a question thread if you need assistance between now and then. That way you can get some guidance more readily instead of waiting for the next stream. Speaking of which, our next stream will be Saturday. That'll start at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 7 p.m. UTC. Let's go. Oh, so close. So close. Tuck these in just later so I look at that. Wow. Couldn't have asked for a better fit. That worked out really well. I really only had to overline one little bit and overlap the barring like that to kind of make it look like it's one. So there are boats on the workshop shared by our community members. You just type boat, ship, different names often return different results depending on how they're shared. Boat hulls? Boat hulls, you mean? So if you type boat, you get a couple here, but if you type ship, right, tend to get a bunch more. Remember, it's all dependent on who labeled it and how they labeled it. Do you mean the boat building tools that we were talking about that would be built into DA at some point? Workshop just crashed. So the stuff that's built into DA won't be in the Fun with Objects update. It'll in the first one, it'll be in the second one. They're working out a way to make ships using the modular objects tool, which is a new tab that's added here when you like play with like rails and pipes and stuff. But they're working on it. They were kind of had a basic iteration that they were thinking of including in this update, but they didn't like where it was, so they wanted to wait to release that in the Fun with Objects Part 2 update. So you'll have like a primitive ship builder built into Dungeon Alchemist after the next update. I like the new graves for sure. Let's look at this. In one stream, I added all that, and most of it I was spent time hanging out, talking, like sharing teasers, offering tutorial guidance. So I really didn't do much for the build. But in the past, I would put in like graves by hand and make them out like this with like custom headstones. It was getting very tedium, you know, it was taking a lot of time. So this is going to speed things up. I'll be able to fill out this section probably in like the next stream or two because so much faster. Trying to figure out how we'll do the rows going through here. I'll probably do rows like whoop, 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 and then we'll kind of have them like meet with like a walkway or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Anyway, thank you everyone for attending today. Oh yeah, there is office hours Wednesday. Sorry, I forgot about that. I have honestly, Chim, I have not slept much lately. I'm running on like 2 to 4 hours a night because there's so much going on as we crunch and launch and get close to launch. Like I was working on the trailer rough draft till like midnight. I was up till 2 in the morning because I couldn't sleep. Woke up at 5, got ready for the day, had my coffee, and then got on the stream. Like I had a meeting with the devs this morning and talked with them about a bunch of stuff. It's been rather busy around here, so kind of burning the candle from both ends. I apologize that I forgot about office hours. Office hours definitely gonna happen on Wednesday. So my apologies. Save and I'm gonna wrap up the stream, okay? All right, everyone. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I had a lot of fun with today's Mapmaker Monday. Remember, tune in on Wednesday for office hours or Saturday for the Dam Challenge stream or the Dam stream. But until next time, or we'll see you next time I give a damn, right? Mac out. Bye. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream and end it. See you later. Hope you have an amazing week. Uh-oh. No, what's going on? I don't know if I'll be able to close it. Well, my mouse is bugging out. Give me a minute.